An Olympic afternoon here on BBC One, looking back at the most memorable moments of the Golden Games in an hour. Then London 2012 as you've never seen it before. Through the lens, the commentators and presenters' story is at 3. But before all that, what a year for Formula One.
It was a season like no other. An unfolding story so full of twists and turns it could have been the product of Hollywood. A script that brought together flesh and metal, emotion and power, the greatest car chase ever. It dealt in fantasy, in impossible happenings, unpredictable at every scene. Old favourites returned to the stage to show they'd lost none of their lustre. Some stars dimmed, reduced to mere extras, as we embraced new heroes with familiar names. We cheered for the underdog as celebration cut short. Like an action movie, it kept you on the edge of your seat. Bravery, excitement, glamour, a life out of reach. Subplots evolved, storylines changed, triumphs and pitfalls, a love story gone sour. Heroes and villains switching in a moment. It had to be scripted. An epic tale requires the perfect backdrop, and this one was altered with every episode. Some of these supporting stars came with stripes, greeted with a warm fanfare. Others became the focus themselves as the tension rose. Still, the old director stood firm. The greatest story ever told has an ending just as captivating. Lights out. Camera. Action.
Oh, lovely.
So I've got you some genuine, beautiful Irish coffees, just to warm the cockles of your heart.
I've always wondered what you got in your head. What is it?
I wouldn't ask.
Anyway, happy Christmas to the three of you. Let's reflect on what was an amazing
Yes,
F1 season. I mean, all the chats a year ago from now was about 6 world champions on the grid. We'd never seen that before, had we?
And we'll probably not see it again for quite some time, but it did give us an amazing season. I think that if you look, those 6 world champions, apart from Michael, actually, they all delivered.
I thought the unpredictability of the season made it, for me, a standout year.
I think what was amazing when we look back at the start of the season was Ferrari, wasn't it? You know, this is the team, the classic Formula One team. They've got so much resource, so much money, so much history behind them. They were so bad in pre-season, do you remember?
The first day that we put the car on the track, it was a little bit of, more than a little bit, it was a big surprise. The expectations were totally different. There's no reason to mask that. For sure, I remember very well that we had a problem of speed, a lot of drag, a lot of instability, a problem of traction, so a lot of things.
Were there any unwelcome surprises, things that you didn't expect?
You always have, you know, in the new car you always have. You know, it's just the beginning of a big, you know, job to have a consistent and competitive car.
We know that this kind of competition is also a psychological game. If you shout outside the problem that you have inside, it doesn't help. It was a moment where we had to regroup and try to solve. Knowing that you don't have any magic touch, you cannot solve the things from one night to the morning after. I think that was, I would say, the most difficult moment of the season.
points.
Alonso in the gravel.
Beached, he's out. He is furious. There's something fundamentally wrong with that car.
And it was a bad start, wasn't it? I mean, do you remember? 12th and 16th on the grid in Australia for the first race. That's not acceptable for a team like Ferrari.
We had a quite difficult qualifying, and unfortunately I have to say that qualifying remained the most difficult days of all the season.
And actually, while Ferrari was struggling, you know, McLaren were as hot as this coffee when the season got going. I mean, they had an amazing pre-season and a great first race.
We came out guns blazing and we showed we had the pace. We were very quick in qualifying.
Lewis Hamilton has taken pole position.
That was an incredible performance from Lewis Hamilton.
Button now goes second.
We locked out the front row, which is always nice at the first race, and I got a good start and got Lewis into turn 1.
Lights out, away we go. Hamilton and Button going for the first corner, and Button has got a good start. Jenson Button is ahead.
Jenson Button, this is impressive stuff.
Really felt good in the car, you know, the car was working well.
Button wins in Australia.
Oh, fantastic. What a great way to start the year, guys. The car is beautiful and she's quick.
A good race, and we expected the rest of the season to be that easy.
Look at the rain out the back of the circuit.
It is pouring down now.
Done to aquaplane. The last sector is like a lake. The last sector is like a lake.
Sergio Perez, I think, coming into the pits. Look at the rain falling now.
That could be an inspired decision from Perez with that amount of rain.
In any given sporting year, there's always someone who emerges as the coming man, and I think that Sergio Perez showed very early on that he has something special.
My engineer was telling me that I was pulling away from the others and I was catching Fernando, that I was the fastest car on the track.
You are very quick, Checo, doing very well.
That I was the fastest car on the track again and again.
You are very quick.
Is Fernando Alonso starting to struggle now? Could Perez get onto the back of a Ferrari?
This one is definitely one to watch.
I was just thinking for the victory. I was just going for the victory. I didn't care anymore for the second place. But then we had some other circumstances.
Checo, be careful. We need this position. We need this position.
Perez has a problem.
Oh no!
He's ran wide.
Perez in trouble. Alonso's been given a huge break by that.
Who knows really, but I'm sure I will have given him a harder time.
Ferrari are going to dig themselves out of all the trouble they've had in testing. Remarkably, Fernando Alonso wins a Malaysian Grand Prix. He takes the victory.
This is one of the most beautiful. This is one of the most beautiful. We are so proud of you. So proud of you and of the team.
Second place goes to the 21-year-old Mexican, Sergio Perez.
It's wet eyes at Ferrari, it's wet eyes at Sauber. You've got to love this Formula 1 2012.
Within the team was a big relief because after that difficult start, at least you were putting one victory in a season. That is something that you don't have to give for granted.
A tough time, obviously. Ferrari, when things goes well, everything is exaggerating, and when things goes bad, everything is dramatic. And I think it's not affecting us, but any win or any good result in this first part of the championship that we are struggling a little bit, for sure make people happy working tomorrow in Maranello 8 o'clock.
Nico Rosberg is going to have his first ever pole position, and the first pole position for Mercedes since 1955.
Good job, fella.
So we had those first two races and two different winners, and then we go to China and we get our third, Nico Rosberg. And I think that was a hugely unexpected victory, right?
It was the surprise of the season as far as I'm concerned.
It's Nico Rosberg who wins the Chinese Grand Prix. His first ever victory, the first win for Mercedes since 1955. He's done it.
There was a double DRS on that Mercedes car, which enabled them to gain even more top speed than anyone else. And at that point, it just, on that track, on that day in history, gave them this massive advantage.
How does it feel? Oh, fantastic. No, thank you to everybody at home too, who's a part of this. And part of this effort today, and no, it feels very special. You know, finally, it's been a long time coming, so fantastic.
I didn't see you kiss the trophy up there on the podium. Wonderful. Well done, son.
As it turned out, that was the high point for Mercedes in the whole season.
Security stepped up at the Bahrain Grand Prix as anti-government protesters call for 3 days of rage.
This is not the image of burning rubber that Formula One organisers will have hoped for.
I don't believe the Grand Prix should go ahead.
I genuinely believe that this race is a force for good.
Tear gas, stun grenades, protests on the streets, petrol bombs. It's not what F1 wants to be associated with, is it?
It's nothing to do with F1.
I'm here to race, and that's all I have to say.
Until we went to Bahrain, Red Bull had one podium. And I remember the newspaper headlines. Has Adrian Newey forgotten how to design a fast car? What's happened to Red Bull?
We were in a luxury position 2011, winning so many races. It was never expected, you know, when we got to the track that we come to the circuit and win. But we were always, you know, in a very strong position. And in a way, I probably now have to admit that you get not used to it, but somehow maybe in the back of your head you have the expectation to fight for the win, to be able to do that. And at the beginning of this year we weren't. We simply were not in the position to, you know, fight for victory.
Sebastian Vettel has not only had a terrible qualifying, he's now had a terrible start. He's down in 15th place.
He took it remarkably well. I mean, he knew that it was a long game and it was a question of picking up the points on the days you couldn't win, you know, maximising your chances. Unfortunately, Malaysia, we had an incident with Karthikeyan and lost points there. China, he did a strong race on a slightly different strategy, but we still managed to get, you know, sensible points out of that race. And then, of course, we got to Bahrain, where you know, we got our first win of the season.
This is wonderful racing, and Vettel has certainly not got it all his own way as he tries to take his first win of this 2012 season. Kimi Räikkönen has closed that gap remorselessly.
This is world champion against world champion.
Here comes Kimi, he's got a chance. Go. He's going down the inside. Oh, and he can't make it because Vettel just moves there. Sebastian Vettel wins in Bahrain. It's the first Red Bull win of 2012.
The first win of the season was a big relief. It was a great race with the pressure from behind. Kimi was very quick in the race. Arguably he was quicker than us, but we still won it.
Okay, Kimi, excellent job, mate. P11 to P2.
Yeah, thanks everybody. I had one chance, but
we put ourselves in a position to fight for it for most of the race, so then it was disappointing to lose by a few seconds.
He weighed up the situation and risk versus return. He knew he didn't have the fastest car in Formula One, so he was going for consistency. And at that stage, it did look he was a bit cautious, but it gave him a second place. He came from, what, 11th on the grid? And there'll be a few people who didn't take a 2-year break out to go off and do rallying, might look at their own performances and just question, well, actually, Kimi did an amazing job when he's come back.
Here comes Lewis Hamilton, looking for another pole position this year. Can he take his first ever pole in Spain? He's done it! And that's a brilliant effort.
Great lap there from Hamilton, but what about this guy, Pastor Maldonado?
Second place on the grid for Williams. That is a huge story.
Okay, Lewis, we need to stop the car. We have a problem. We need to stop the car. Please turn off.
Serious problem?
I'll explain all later.
When they told me that I didn't have enough fuel in, I kind of then knew that I was going to get a penalty. There's nothing I could do about it, but it is frustrating because I'd done such a good lap. When we saw that Lewis stopped during his lap, we were, you know, like 60-70% sure that the place was for us.
This is how the grid lines up then. It is Venezuela's Pastor Maldonado who starts on pole position for Williams Renault, Alonso alongside in the Ferrari, and of course bringing up the rear a certain Lewis Hamilton.
I was a little bit worried about the start. They've been always, all through the season, starting very well, you know, and we've been starting very bad.
Lights out, away we go. It's Williams versus Ferrari. Pastor Maldonado good, but Alonso's got a very good start from the inside. Alonso takes the lead into the first corner, but Maldonado's trying to stay with him. No, he can't.
Alonso got the place at the first corner. I knew that our car was the strongest. We did a great strategy. I gained the place on him on the second pit stop.
Maldonado there, he's going to take the lead.
That was a great effort by Williams and by Maldonado.
And after that, he tried to put a lot of pressure. I started to push a little bit to make a gap. I did it. Difficult to realize that we were winning a race.
Pastor Maldonado wins in Spain. It's the first Williams victory since Brazil 2004.
That was special. Even when Fernando and Kimi take me on the shoulders, that was so good. You know, always the first one is the most important.
I didn't think Williams had still got their mojo. I didn't think that they could actually become winners again. And Maldonado, he was no big star coming into this. He was a pay driver. And for pay drivers to win in Formula One, hats off to them. I love it.
I was in the garage, at the moment. So it was so scared for everyone. Just in 1 second, we saw everything get on fire. We saw some of our guys burn. It was a difficult time for the team, you know, after such a big victory and such a big moment.
Off that amazing high of victory, then we had the shock afterwards, where they had this fire in the pit box, which I think showed the best of Formula One actually, because all of the teams came together with the fire extinguishers and really showed that in difficult moments like that, Formula One is a small community.
Meanwhile, Michael Schumacher had, well, a moment of madness, I guess you'd call it.
Do we think that Bruno was moving in the braking area? I don't think so. It looks like Michael was just caught out. I hate to beat up on Michael because it appears like I'm just bitter and twisted that he used to beat me all the time. But what did Bruno Senna do wrong there?
Very frustrating. It's I'm very much annoyed about that.
The fact that he couldn't be magnanimous or actually understand that he was the car behind. It's not Senna to look in his mirror. It was a major mistake.
He's embarrassed, right? This is Michael Schumacher.
But he blames Senna.
Michael doesn't get embarrassed.
Senna.
Let me tell you, I asked Michael several years ago in his first career, has he ever been wrong? And he said, not that I remember. Michael Schumacher doesn't believe he makes mistakes. And that's why, at that moment, it was all about Bruno Senna. It was not about something he'd done. That also brought with it a penalty, which carried into the next Grand Prix in Monaco.
Swimming pool, glimmering, darling. Wipe bikini off with my red nail polish. Watch me in the swimming pool, bright blue ripples. You sitting, sipping on your black crystal.
Here comes Michael Schumacher. The master of Monaco. Can he do it? He's done it! He's on pole! It would be his 69th career pole, but it won't be because he's got a penalty.
So let's hail the pole man, Mark Webber.
You know, it's probably one of my best front rows ever. It's not often that Seb can't react to anything that I'm doing, and he was really struggling to match me that weekend.
Webber comes out of the final corner, and what a performance it was for Red Bull, their hat-trick of victories in Monaco.
Fantastic, Mark. You've won the Monaco Grand Prix again. Well done. Great try.
Mark had had a quiet season up until that point, but that was a great victory. You know, he was able to control the race out front, make good decisions in terms of strategy, and it was a very strong victory, his second victory in Monte Carlo.
Take that bottle and make it! Sebastian Vettel surges into the lead. Hamilton being asked to push, and he certainly has closed up the gap.
This is it, boys. Do your best.
Oh, and there's a problem!
Now he knows he's got to take everything he can out of the tyres.
Let the party rock.
Hamilton is really setting the timing screen to life now.
It's not impossible. They may try and go to the end. We need to keep pushing.
Hamilton's continuing to be the fastest man. Resistance is futile.
Hamilton has grabbed second place. There's just the Ferrari ahead now.
Champagne showers.
So much more car speed in the McLaren. Nothing that Alonso can do. Lewis Hamilton becomes the 7th different winner of 2012. Now
want you to grab your bottles. Yeah, boy. Put them up in the air.
Thank you so much, guys.
Shake that bottle and make it.
Yeah, I do remember it being nice to be at the top of the field, but it lasted for a very, very short period of time, which is probably the most disappointing part.
It was a fantastic team victory based on the correct strategy, despite another slow pit stop, which had been something that dogged McLaren at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, so you described that as a great team victory. Do you get the impression that even that early on in the season, Lewis is starting to question if that is the right team for him to be at?
You know, I don't know what's really going on in there in that mind of his. And there must have been things that said, look, at the start of the season, we have the best car. We should be champions. But finger problems with the team. We know what went on. The tyre choice, running over his own tyre. Too many things where the team made mistakes.
Hamilton comes in.
It was a very slow stop for Hamilton. He's caught the rear wheel. They haven't been able to get the wheel out of the way in time.
Oh, he's lost a massive amount of time in the pits once again.
It was frustrating because from those positions it should have been easier with the car that we had to have won.
In my opinion, they went in for sub 3 second stops too quick. And as a result, too many finger problems occurred.
Yeah, we had problems with the pit stops, and a lot of it was we were trying new things. We were trying to bring in new jacks, a new type of gun, new type of wheel nut. There were so many things that we were trying, and it was maybe just all a little bit too much at once. Was it worth it? Would have been nice to have done it over the winter.
Is it possible to lose the chance to fight for a championship after only 6 or 7 races of the year? Because it felt like this was the point where Jensen's attempt to be world champion fell away.
Don't have, the pace.
Got too much understeer in the car. Let's work that one out.
Button is back in the pits. Does that mean it's over?
Was Jensen thrown in the towel?
Jensen, Button, 10th.
You don't have 3 bad qualifying sessions and understand what's going wrong.
Hamilton, and look how he's going to be lapping Button in a minute.
Where's he gaining on you?
Everywhere.
Not a lot to say about that really, is there? As you've probably seen on the TV screens, Lewis has won the race.
Today I was probably 1.5, 2 seconds off of the pace of the leaders. And I don't think I've ever been that before, especially in a car that's won the Grand Prix.
I don't understand why we're getting so much locking. I mean, the locking is unbelievable. It's everywhere.
I don't know if the circuit changed or what, but I just couldn't slow the car down.
The conversation I'd have with Jensen would be quite colourful. I'd want to know what on earth's gone wrong. 4 points in 4 or 5 races, you win the first race, your teammates just won the race.
Yeah, a really tough part of the season. We thought it was tyre warm-up issues, and when the pit lane has tyre warm-up issues, I always have even bigger issues. And it's something I struggled with since 2009.
At which point of the season did you think that your championship chances were over?
Pretty early on when I was asked the questions, but you're never going to turn around and say, yeah, it's over for me, the championship. You've got to be very careful with what you say. You know, you've got to keep these guys positive. They're working flat out. You turn around and say, no, we're not in it anymore. You know, it's not positive attitude, and it's not the right way to be. But it was always going to be difficult, you know, even after sort of Monaco, Canada time.
Sebastian Vettel 2 seconds a lap faster than Lewis Hamilton.
Where's Red Bull found this incredible pace from?
Sebastian was in a league of his own that weekend. He got the pole and then he was something like 20 seconds in the lead. He was at one stage 2 seconds a lap quicker than the opposition, and arguably it was our most competitive race.
Simply had the pace for the very first time really to just disappear. And then we had the problem with the alternator.
Vettel in trouble! Alonso leads! Major dramas here in the European Grand Prix! Vettel has slowed to a stop, and Adrian Newey can't believe it!
Obviously it makes you angry. It's nothing you've done wrong. Disappointed and angry that we didn't finish the race.
Hamilton could be under pressure here from Maldonado.
I could feel the tyres going off, and I said to the guys, these tyres are not going to last.
In that moment I was 3 seconds quicker than him, fighting for the podium,
he was in big trouble with the tires.
Oh, that's tight, that's so close, they're almost touching wheels at 180 miles an hour.
In hindsight, I could have easily just let him pass.
But Hamilton will fight it with everything he's got.
In the heat of the moment, you're not thinking about that. You're thinking, I've worked so hard for this position. The team needs the points, I need the points. There's no way I'm going to give it up without a fight.
And he breaks a little early, and Maldonado tries to go around the outside of it. They almost touch, but they're not quite. But was he over? Hamilton's in the wall!
I didn't expect Lewis to defend and to put me out of the track. I didn't expect that from him.
Hamilton in the timer, he's out of the European Grand Prix. He beats the steering wheel. He cannot believe what has just happened.
But then sometimes you just have to remember which driver you're racing with.
Next time, if I will be in the same position, I will do the same.
Astonishing drive from Fernando Alonso.
That's great, brave stuff.
And Fernando Alonso is the first repeat winner of 2012 and the first time he's won in Valencia.
Very difficult feeling to describe, winning at home.
Giornata fantastica.
I thought this moment I will try to remember for many years. I know that it will be on my mind for many years. So I try to enjoy every single moment. I try to feel the emotions from the fans, from the team, from everybody.
I believe the best race of Fernando of the season, even if I have to say that Fernando this year was really performing very, very well.
He came from 11th and he won that race and really showed that Ferrari, had developed that car.
For me, that turned his season around because then he became a championship contender.
And then, of course, we came home to Silverstone, where it rained all weekend, meaning there was really only one way to arrive for this year's British Grand Prix.
He can't win. Everyone's in the campsite. Drivers walking around the track. I love the British Grand Prix.
That's crazy, man.
So we'd had our weekend high, and then it was Mark Webber's turn to have a high point, wasn't it? What did you think of that race weekend for him?
There's something about Silverstone and Mark Webber, it brings out the best in him.
Lights out, away we go, and it's a good start from Alonso and Webber. Oh, he just gets in front of Webber.
The race itself was boring probably for people to watch, but it was a very good battle in terms of every single lap, because with Fernando, you're not going to get any free half-a-second chunks off him because he's always consistent with his times.
Webber's going to try and go down the outside into Brooklands for the lead. It's Mark Webber side by side with the Ferrari. He's done it.
Had to make sure I got the move done, and I know that section of the track very well, obviously, so it was I was confident I'd get the job done, and we did.
Brave pass round the outside into Brooklands.
Mark Webber, he is going to win the British Grand Prix.
He needed that. It brought him back into the hunt within the championship.
And while Mark Webber was picking up the win, Fernando Alonso was also on the podium, finishing second there. He won in Germany, he came fifth in Hungary. He was always in the hunt for the points.
Alonso takes his third win of 2012. Lewis Hamilton comes through to win the Hungarian Grand Prix. The championship leader Fernando Alonso in fifth place.
And all this consistency, picking up point after point after point, it left him 40 points ahead in the championship battle. Was Seb driving like a man under pressure at this point, do you think? I mean, there was that overtake around the outside of Jenson Button, 4 wheels clearly off the circuit, 20-second penalty.
Sebastian Vettel trying down the outside, trying to outbrake the McLaren, but can he get turned in? No. Racing for second, he's done it.
Yes, gentlemen, the FIA are aware.
I think that a lot of what happens in the Grand Prix is just reactive, and he tried to go around the outside of Jenson. Jenson very fairly gave him as much space as he needed to.
And at this point, the message was clear to Sebastian Vettel, and it was, if you want to be the third ever hat-trick world champion in the history of the sport, you're not going to have it all your own way. You've got to fight for this title.
I think we were very pleasantly surprised from the start of the season how many real contenders there were. We know clearly we had 7 different winners in the first 7 races. So this time it had changed. He had to get a grip of this thing. He really needed to get this championship by the scruff of the neck if he was ever going to feature in the outcome.
We're getting ready to go for the Belgian Grand Prix. Lights out, away we go, and Pastor Maldonado shooting through. Was that a jump start? Oh, Hamilton's contact! Oh, and he's hit the Lotus! Romain Grosjean over the top of Alonso! Alonso's out, Hamilton's out! Real drama at the start of the race, and this has a massive impact in terms of the championship as well.
Well, that started to be the turning point in Spa for us because we struggled in qualifying, but his race was remarkable, you know, and his progress through the field, you know, was truly impressive.
Vettel getting up the inside of Massa.
And Vettel's gone through. Sebastian Vettel goes round the outside of centre if he can just finish it off. Yes, he does. Vettel's gone through. He's gone past. Look at this, Vettel having an attempt to get past Schumacher. Jenson Button takes victory at Spa. Vettel finishes second. A great recovery and moves closer to Alonso in the championship.
When Fernando looks back on the 2012 season, there'll be a couple of moments where he thinks, that was a big, big moment for me. And one of them was right at the start of the Grand Prix in Spa.
For all the wrong reasons. It wasn't a big moment because he was winning the Grand Prix. He literally almost lost his head.
It was horrific. Anything could have happened. We could have had, at worst, we could have had a fatality.
And this wasn't the first time that we'd seen Grosjean causing issues at the start of a Grand Prix.
Some people are good racing drivers and others are just fast racing drivers. And at this stage, it was quite clear that Romain was quick, but he wasn't good when it came to close quarter racing.
Maldonado trying to get past Grosjean, and the race is over already for him.
Grosjean moves across in front of Michael. There was nowhere for him to go. Grosjean touching the back of Paul di Resta.
And Lewis Hamilton left that weekend having been knocked out on the first lap, but the real talking point for Lewis Hamilton after Spa was this tweeting of the telemetry. He was clearly frustrated in qualifying. He and Jenson Button had gone a different way with setup on the car, and he decided to share confidential McLaren information with 1 million Twitter followers.
When Lewis looks back on this season, that for me should be his lowest point. I don't care how good he is, he needed to be reprimanded. I don't think he was reprimanded by the team, and I do also feel that was absolutely the start. If anyone wanted to look back and say, where did the thing of Hamilton leaving McLaren start from? That's the start.
And Alonso trying to go round the outside of Vettel. He's on the grass! Alonso's on the grass and he gets back on!
Okay, that's enough. We saw that. It's very clear what happened.
Drive through for Sebastian Vettel, and that has a big impact in terms of the World Championship.
Stop the car, we need to save the engine, stop the car.
Hamilton has controlled this race beautifully from the front. Lewis Hamilton wins the Italian Grand Prix.
Thank you so much, guys. Incredible job.
Hamilton right back in the championship hunt.
Do you think back to what he could have achieved if he'd been in a content and happy place with McLaren at that time?
You know, the season was not about whether Lewis was in a happy place. It was about some finger troubles at McLaren. You know, that Grand Prix, as he's off winning the race, of course, Jenson Button was parking the car with a reliability issue.
And of course, it was the week building up to the Monza Grand Prix that you'd announced to the world that you believed Lewis was leaving. Did you think that at that time his mind absolutely was made up about walking away from a team that had given him another win that weekend?
I think the decision had been made, and that's why we announced to the people and the public that I felt sure that Lewis was leaving.
We didn't announce anything. You announced.
You started it.
Hamilton has been in a class of his own all weekend, hasn't he, David?
We've got a problem for Hamilton.
Hamilton's in trouble.
He's lost drive.
Another failure to finish for Hamilton by the looks of it. His World Championship hopes are disappearing rapidly with that.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a great car to be able to compete for a World Championship, and the fact that we're not is very tough for all of us to be able to deal with, because we could absolutely easily, without reliability issues, be competing for a win, the championship, both constructors and drivers.
What do you say? I mean, what do they say to him? What does he say to them? With the loss of Lewis Hamilton from this race, it's all been straightforward for Sebastian Vettel.
Yes! We did it!
I think he'd made his mind up. Things turned away from him, and that was the sign he said, I'm out of here.
It just became clear that I wanted to try something new. I was going to go for it. And then I called Martin, which was the hardest, most difficult call that I'd ever had to make.
The Formula One racing driver Lewis Hamilton has left the British racing team McLaren and signed for their rivals Mercedes. It brings to an end the former world champion.
This leaves a big question mark over the future of Michael Schumacher, the man Hamilton's replacing at Mercedes.
At some point, it's good to say goodbye, and it might this time even be forever.
We hadn't considered what else that would create, and yet we had Michael Schumacher having to suddenly leave Mercedes and Sergio Perez suddenly getting the seat at McLaren.
I think there was a rush, which there always is. It's a domino effect. One person makes the move at the top and it all flitters out down at the bottom, and that's what happened.
Perez, once again, the young Mexican driver, has starred here today.
Yes, Checo, yes. Fantastic, Checo, great.
Middle of July, more or less, is when the first contact came from McLaren, but I didn't pay too much attention because I never thought Lewis was going to leave the team, so I didn't want to make too much expectation on that.
We were very surprised to see Perez because I thought Paul di Resta had a decent shot at that McLaren seat.
I've got no hard feelings because at the end of the day my paths might cross in a year, they might cross in 10 years' time, and it's what it is. You know, you've got to deal with what you're dealt with in life, and you know, I'll just keep pushing, try and keep myself in the framework for these drives in the future, do my job on track, and hopefully that'll do the talking for me.
In Spa and in Japan, unfortunately, we didn't do any even a corner.
And somebody's off already. Is that Alonso?
Contact with the Lotus.
Kimi, I think.
0 point into races that was really a massive hit on the championship.
Oh, Roman, what are you doing?
Maybe we have two separate starts, one for him, one for us.
So many first corner incidents, he just rear-ended the back of Mark Webber.
I didn't see the delta speed with Mark Webber in front and touch him, so
At which point did you think that your championship chances had come to the end?
I think Suzuka was quite tough, yeah. I think that there was a very good chance for me to get a good result there. Wow, that was a lot of points that was missed out, and you know, Fernando obviously didn't finish. Seb won.
53 laps, an amazing car. Thank you for that, boys.
He was on fire that weekend. I mean, he got the pole and then was truly dominant in the race. Our biggest problem in the race was slowing him down.
Vettel, it's a hat-trick of victories.
Compared to the car we had at the beginning of the season, I was able to play a little bit more and manipulate the car more to the way that I like.
And Sebastian Vettel's going to do it. He's going to win all 4 races in Asia.
Good job, mate.
4 wins, 4 races, 100 championship points. That's an amazing achievement.
It was, you know, Red Bull had really hit form. The developments they brought to Singapore had released some performance in the car. It was like watching 2011 again, the way Sebastian was able to throw that car around. And that run of 4 victories brought him right back into the championship.
Whereas Abu Dhabi has been quite a good place for us in the past, on that particular day it wasn't.
Sebastian Vettel comes out of the last corner. He's 3rd.
It was obviously a good session for us.
Alonso's not going fastest.
Unfortunately, it was 6 cars faster than us today.
Stop the car, stop the car.
I mean, that night we were waiting to see what was going on. I mean, it was very long to understand there was no fuel in the car. But anyway, I don't want to, you understand what I mean.
Sebastian Vettel's been demoted to the back of the grid for a fuel irregularity.
Sebastian Vettel starting from the pit lane.
Yeah, for sure it was a big hit because, the championship is closing in and there's less and less races to you know, maybe make up for things like that happening.
No, it was tough, but we took a strategic decision to say, okay, we're starting from the back, let's withdraw the car from the grid and therefore out apart firming, make a few little changes, because if we're going to overtake, you know, we're going to maybe need to take a bit of wing off the car.
In the end of the day, you know, I think it was a strong point for us to see the opportunities we had, rather than always thinking what would be if. Get on with it and focus on the race.
A track layout which hasn't seen much overtaking. Vettel will hope to change all that.
Before the race, he had the confidence. He said, "I'll see you on the podium." I thought, that's confident.
Lights out, away we go. Lewis Hamilton lights it up.
Starting from the pit lane, this is about scrapping for a few points.
Alonso gets alongside, he's trying to take the place. What a move! Vettel goes on the attack.
Sebastian, there is damage on your right-hand side.
A difficult afternoon, looking like it's going to get even worse.
Rosberg is out. Rosberg has crashed out of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix and safety car has been deployed.
What is he doing? He's stopping all the time.
That's definitely damaged his front wing now. It looks like he will need to come for that nose change.
So then he's had a wing change. He's at the back of the grid again for the restart, and then started to come through the field.
Now, can he challenge on the restart? Vettel gets the line. Grosjean's still there. Vettel eventually gets it. Hamilton's in trouble. What is going on? Kimi Raikkonen leads the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Alonso goes up into second place. He's got past Maldonado. What a break. Oh, there's going to
touch Webber as well.
It's all gone horribly wrong.
Will there be another safety car, Ben?
This closes it all up together, and suddenly Sebastian Vettel will be with the race leaders in a fast Red Bull. Sebastian Vettel, as he tries to find a way past Jenson Button. This is for a podium position, remember. Oh, and there's Vettel trying to get past Button. He might have done it this time. Oh, beautifully done. Alonso is charging here. He's looking for victory.
Can you tell me when it gets to the end, Ben? I'm covering my eyes, the excitement here.
Alonso running out of time. He's done it. Kimi Raikkonen wins. Alonso finishes in second. Sebastian Vettel, a brilliant third place to retain the championship lead.
That was just such a tenacious drive. We limited the damage. Fernando only scored 3 more points than us. And that was a crucial moment, because, you know, we could have quite easily left Abu Dhabi, you know, with having lost the lead in the championship.
Thank you, boys. I told you, never lift, never stop believing.
Fernando Alonso was delighted to be on the podium yet again, but seeing his main championship rival there as well, I think really took the wind out of his sails.
Well, it was not easy from the emotional point of view to handle, because you felt that we didn't take the opportunity that he was given because of external things that we were not able to control.
Vettel was very lucky. He had a lot of luck with the safety car. He had a lot of positions that he was able to make up, pit stops, the whole lot, and it resulted in him being on the... Ferrari would have been distraught. That was, for me, the pure sign, if they first signs for them, that, hey, this championship could be going away from us.
And how surprised were you that in his comeback year, Kimi does what Michael Schumacher couldn't manage and picks up a win?
We had a good speed, and it shows what we've been saying, that if we can put ourselves in a clear air and use our kind of flat time speed, then we can challenge for wins.
A lot of emotions, I have to say. I mean, a lot of great feedback from everybody, and maybe the most important is I think the whole paddock and our main competitors in the paddock went to say congratulations. So that just shows how we have the respect in this paddock, and our people was happy for us to win. And it's to show 25 years for Lotus without a win, 4 years for Enstone as well. So this is something which was missing, and we were all hungry about it.
Kimi is a winning Grand Prix driver. He's an ex-world champion, and he gave us all, I think, probably the radio moments of the season when they were trying to give him some advice from the pit wall, and he's like, yes, 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 I know what I'm doing.
Okay, Kimi, we need to keep working all 4 tyres, please. Keep working all 4
Yes,
tyres.
yes, I'm doing all the time. We don't have to remind every second.
I think this is going to be big for the United States.
You would have never thought in 100 years that Austin, Texas would have had a racetrack like this.
Much more better than NASCAR.
or even IndyCar.
It's gone all wrong for Ferrari for only the second time this year. Alonso's been out-qualified by his teammate Felipe Massa. Alonso now starts 7th, and Massa, he's had a gearbox penalty, a bit of tactics there from Ferrari. He starts down in 11th.
We had Massa having the seal broken on his gearbox, so then he took a penalty that allowed Fernando to move up a position.
Yeah, it was very frustrating. I mean, to give away 5 places like this to help the team and to help your teammate. Maybe it's difficult to find other drivers which will do that.
It's a team sport, and we had this opportunity from the regulation point of view, and we took it, full stop.
The race was all about Lewis Hamilton.
Vettel has got it under control right now.
It looks closer to me, Ben, than he has been.
Lewis Hamilton on the attack. Vettel knows it. He goes defensive to the inside, and Hamilton sweeps past him. Lewis Hamilton, he's the first ever winner on the Circuit of the Americas.
Oh, that was amazing, guys. Woo-hoo! That was wicked.
This was one of his strongest seasons. He didn't win a championship, he didn't win as many Grand Prix as he should have, but he certainly showed he's world class.
Fernando Alonso takes 3rd place to keep this title challenge alive.
We've won our 3rd consecutive Constructors' World Championship, which you know, we're all immensely proud of.
If we were cruel, we would say McLaren blew this championship. They had everything in their favour, from drivers to car to designers to budget to everything. They blew it.
I'll miss being in the garage. I'll miss going to the factory. I'll miss all the people that I get to work with very closely. I'll miss the Rocket Red shirts when we succeed and we celebrate together. I'll miss being in the garage, and yeah, it's going to be tough. Anyways, I don't want to talk about it too much.
In some ways, it was right that a remarkable season came down to the very last race.
One of these greats, and there's no question, Sebastian Vettel and Fernando Alonso are great, great drivers. One of them is going to walk away with this title today. Which one?
In normal condition, Sebastian would have easily taken the place because he is very good, the car is very, very strong. But we also know that when you are under pressure, you start to tremble.
13 points the gap in the championship. Even if Vettel falls off the road, Alonso has to finish top 3 to win this championship.
None of us could have predicted what was about to unfold.
Everything that could happen, happened, and everything that could go wrong in a way went wrong.
Lights out, away we go, and Hamilton versus Button off the front row. Vettel away slowly. Wow, we have a race on our hands. Vettel did not get away at all well there.
It seems that he had the worst start of the season. For Sebastian, because of the tension, that is natural. I mean, nothing strange. They are very young guys, don't forget that.
As a Red Bull, it's Vettel!
It's
He's
Vettel!
Been hit.
Down at turn 4. How much damage is on the Red Bull? What drama here on the first lap in Brazil?
At that point, you think that's it, it's over. It was obvious that Fernando, because he always is on the podium, was going to finish on the podium, which is what he needed to achieve to win the championship.
Usually in that moment you think it's over, you're out of the race. In that particular moment, probably it's over, I'm out of the championship. But in that case, I just wanted to get going again.
Our priority was to win the podium, because whatever's happened to Sebastian, if we are not in the podium, we had no chance.
Alonso moves up into 3rd place, which is where he needs to be if Vettel gets no points here today.
I didn't know how much damage there was, so I drove past the main straight, close to the pit wall, to give Adrian and give people a chance to have a look.
Sebastian, there's visible damage, but stay out to see how the car behaves. We cannot fix it. It's not front wing. We cannot fix the damage.
There was a lot of damage to the exhaust system and the aerodynamics in that part of the car. But then he started coming back.
Vettel's just done a quick lap faster than anybody else. This isn't over yet.
Alonso's gone wide.
Alonso's gone wide. Hulkenberg's gone past. Vettel's just trying to pick them off one by one. Fantastic by the Red Bull.
He was determined that he wasn't going to let the championship slip away.
I just kept going. Surprisingly quickly, I was behind Fernando.
Look at Hulkenberg challenging Hamilton for the lead. Oh, no! Oh, they've made contact! Hamilton and Hulkenberg! And now that's going to be Button leading and Alonso in second place. Hamilton's final race at McLaren ends with a damaged car.
Sebastian, the radio does not work. The radio does not work.
It was too dry for Inters at that point, so we had to stick to our basic rule of we've got to fit the right tyres for that moment.
This is a crucial call for Red Bull to keep him on slick tyres.
That's a brave decision from Red Bull.
And within 30 seconds it started to rain.
Box.
His radio had stopped working. He could hear us, but we couldn't hear him.
They didn't have the tyres ready. Look, it just took so long to get them on. Vettel's obviously made the call. The team haven't heard him. And he arrived in the pit lane, and then it was like, well, what does he want? It must be intermediates.
If they finish where they are now, Alonso would be world champion.
Again, at that stage, you think, that's it, it's gone. And you think it's all over. But then again, Sebastian started coming through.
Brave cut back into the inside.
And he got himself back into that vital 7th position that became 6th when, surprisingly to all of us, Michael Schumacher waved him through.
Michael Schumacher.
His gift in his last race is he doesn't put up any resistance at all to his young German friend.
We were really hoping that it would have been a better fight, but I think that Michael finishes his career there. He didn't want to be seen the one that was keeping the world champion behind.
Sebastian, this position is good enough. Your current position is good enough.
10 laps to go, I had the call that where we currently are is enough. But still I try to push because maybe, there is some odd situation, someone spins.
Andres has had a crash.
They are behind safety car. There will be no further changes. Jenson Button takes victory. Second place goes to Alonso, but with 6th place, Sebastian Vettel is the 2012 Formula One World Champion.
You're the world champion. You're the triple world champion, Sebastian Vettel. You are the man. You're a triple world champion.
Having succeeded and everything just falls off, and it just...
Straightforward, mate, wouldn't it? Straightforward.
In a way, you don't even have the power to maybe realize what happened or the power to celebrate the way you probably thought or dreamt of, celebrating.
If you put yourself in his shoes, I think that he knows, and he knew at that stage, that he would have deserved the championship.
We proved that with a car that is a little bit slower than the others, we can win the championship. With a car that is same as the others, probably we win the championship a few races before the end. And with a car that is a lot slower than the others, we fight until the last race.
I think we have probably seen the best of Fernando Alonso. That's his strongest ever season in Formula One. He didn't win the championship, he's won it a couple of times before with Renault, but he was the most complete driver. The way he motivated the team, the way he raced, he took some big risks. The only 2 non-finishes came because other people ran into him.
Sebastian Vettel, he is the 3rd driver in history to have taken 3 titles in a row.
This is the incomparable Fangio. Calm and courageous, daring yet relaxed.
To prove beyond all doubt his claim to immortality as one of the greatest drivers the world has ever known.
I grew up hearing about Fangio and I thought no one will ever do that, but Michael Schumacher's done it today. This is history.
Sebastian Vettel, you are the world champion! The world champion, well done, enjoy it! You are the man!
Rather than to look up in a certain book, check the number, look, I have done this, we have done this. That's not what it really is about, it's looking back, thinking of the race in Brazil, looking back, standing on the wall in Japan, looking back, crying and feeling completely empty in Abu Dhabi. This is what what no one can take away from you. And I think this will last probably until the last day I'm on this planet, and we'll say goodbye at some stage.
It's only a great driver in a great moment is able to deliver that package. For me, he will in time become one of the real greats of our sport.
Okay, well look, well done, and wonderful to share the season with you all as well. And we are now 4 days past Christmas Day, Eddie. I'm still waiting for my Christmas present. You the same?
Well, we don't like you anymore, Jake. You went and left us on our own and you never even told us. I mean, you left us in the lurch, Jake. You're like walking down the aisle of a wedding and then you're just disappearing on us. What's the story?
You're a big boy, and I think in 2013 you can look after yourself.
Oh, me and you again?
Just you and I.
Is anyone going to be watching you, Jake?
Cut.
Lights out, away we go! You're going to be love this Formula 1 2012. Most beautiful. Oh, it's harder than the wall! I'm so proud of you. He's done it! Sebastian Vettel, you're a triple world champion.
So long, farewell, but not goodbye. I know we'll meet again. 'Cause I've seen in your eyes the spark that lights the dreams of Rocket Man. And you still chase that light that takes you to a place you'll always know, takes you home. And I don't know